Hi, I'm Tracy Marshall. Welcome to my video called He Beat Me at Arm Wrestling. This is going to be the 7th entry in my series, my history of wearing pantyhose and cross-dressing. And I have the day off today because it's Thursday morning, November 27th, Thanksgiving Day. And obviously, well, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to you if you live in a part of the world that celebrates Thanksgiving. And if not, well, hope you're having a great day today. And, I'm going to go, obviously it's a day off for me. The post office is closed on Thanksgiving. And, by the way, when I start back tomorrow, when I go back to the post office and, deliver mail, we're getting into the busiest part of the year for us postmen. So that'll be I'll be real busy for the next month or so, but I'll try to do some videos when I get a chance. But yeah, I'm going to have Thanksgiving, with my older brother and elderly mother who live next door, but that won't be till a little bit later on today. But I'm going to do a video called He Beat Me at Arm Wrestling, and I'll explain it in a minute. But first, if you look at what I'm wearing here, this is not a skirt that I'm wearing, or a dress. It's a nightgown. See, today I'm doing like a throwback to my early years of cross-dressing. Back when I first started years ago in '96. In the early years, I didn't have a dress or a skirt. So what I would do is I'd stick my mom's nightgowns out. I'd wear them with pantyhose, and I'd put a jacket on over the nightgown, and try to make it pass for a dress or a skirt. And as you can see, actually I'm wearing a hoodie, but it's like a plaid nightgown. It's actually a Christmas nightgown, and I bought that not too long ago. And I bought new nightgowns. I do wear nightgowns to sleep, usually in the winter months though, usually only in the winter months. But you can kind of comment and tell me if you think that could possibly pass for a dress. It almost looks like a kilt, doesn't it? But it's not. It's a nightgown, a Christmas nightgown. Okay, I'm gonna try not to make this a very long video. I started, wearing pantyhose and shorts on the trail down in these same woods, after I graduated high school in '93. Then I got into cross-dressing in '96. And well, this story takes place in around January of 2002. I was at the public library in my hometown, and I was wearing like a gray jacket. I think it was gray or silver or something like that, and I had on these gray slacks, and I had on these black loafers. And underneath, I was wearing a pantyhose. I was wearing silver pantyhose. See, there used to be this store in my hometown. It was called Beauty Supply, and actually it was in the same shopping center where I recently did the video wearing white pantyhose a couple weeks or so ago, however long that was. It was in that same shopping center, and the place was called Beauty Supply, and they carried all kinds of, like makeup and, of course, wigs. I bought wigs from there for my cross-dressing. Obviously, they had a huge supply of pantyhose back at that time, and so I would buy a wig. Mainly, I just bought wigs and pantyhose from that store, but they had a huge selection of pantyhose, and some that would fit me, and they had a bunch of different colors, multiple colors. And I remember buying a pair of silver ones. They were silver pantyhose with a reinforced toe. They weren't control top. I don't really like control top pantyhose, but they were silver and had a reinforced toe. And I remember one day I was wearing those, and like I said, with black loafers and gray slacks, and I had a gray or like a silver jacket on. I'm not sure what the color was, grayish, silverish. And I had silver pantyhose underneath those slacks. And I was at the library just reading a magazine, And, you know, I didn't have a job at the time. Well, there's this guy across from me, sitting across the table from me. He was probably about my height, although he was more heavily built than me. I weighed under 200 pounds at the time. Now I weigh over 200 pounds. I've gained weight, especially since I quit delivering mail on foot and have been driving around in a van putting mail in people's boxes all day. I've put on weight in the recent years. But back then I weighed under 200 pounds. I was like maybe 185 to 190 range. And this guy sitting across from me was over 200 pounds, about my height, and he was heavier built than me at the time anyway. And he was a guy that had a big thick beard, mustache, and he was wearing a flannel jacket and looked like work boots. And he was actually filling out a job application. And as he was sitting there across from me, I ended up, you know, just engaging in some small talk with him. And I got to talking. I was talking to him, and I said that, you know, you're pretty big. You're a pretty big guy. Do you lift weights? And he said, I have before, but you know, he's not too fanatical about it. And I said, well, now, you know, neither am I. And I was more into pantyhosing than pumping iron. Anyway, we just got to messing around, and I asked him if he would arm wrestle me, and he agreed to do it. And you know, once I locked up with him and felt his grip, I knew I was in deep trouble. And I was right. I mean, he just powered me right to the table with little trouble at all. And he did this like 2 or 3 times. Finally, he let me have a head start on him. You know, he lowered his arm like halfway to the table and allowed me to, you know, grip up with him, and his arm's like already halfway over. And then it was, you know, I tried to pull him the rest of the way to the table, and it was pretty embarrassing because I couldn't do it. I mean, I'm sitting there straining, I'm kicking my feet under the table, and I had those pantyhose on, and my feet were kind of slippery in those shoes. I ain't kidding you. My heels came out of my loafers. They popped out of my loafers, and I kicked my feet and kicked my shoes off under the table. You know, my silver pantyhose feet are visible under the table if my shoes have been kicked off. And then he just he let me do that for, I don't know, what seemed like about a minute or so. Then he just pulled me back up to even without too much trouble.